in calamity-stricken areas. So while UN continues to have its engagement in specific areas through WHO or through its humanitarian efforts, UNDP particularly focuses on institutional development. Particularly the project with which I am affiliated is meant for empowering and enabling institutions and helping them come up with indigenous solutions to governance challenges. And I completely agree with Dr. Shahid that due to our own governance weaknesses in our own governance framework, sometimes there's a lot of duplication of effort. And as he said, that too many people are doing too many things and nothing is really getting done at the end. But to be honest, I think the blame for that lies with us more than elsewhere. It doesn't have to do with the externalities, but it has to do with our own internalities. So I think the solution lies in having stronger institutional frameworks. There's no two views on that, but how to achieve that? Now, luckily, in our recent past and still, while grappling with this pandemic, we saw the example of how NCOC was such a success story. I mean, it was able to rise above all political affiliations. It was a rather apolitical, very neutral institutional setup, which addressed the problem in a rather effective way. So it's not that such an institutional arrangement is not possible for other areas of our national life. If we can have NCOC for a particular problem, we can have other institutional arrangements also. But how to get those? Now, the need of the hour is that irrespective or despite the political instability or whatever the political context is, we should have strong governance framework. We should have strong institutional mechanisms that carry on doing the work that they are supposed to do, no matter what happens in the international political scenario or the national political scenario. Now, the theme for which you have gathered us today is how to carry on with in a sustainable way regarding the development and what should be the priorities for us. So let's just give some thought to how do we define development. Is it just economic growth? Is it just how much we export, how much we import, how much big industry we have? Or does it, what is our paradigm for development? Or is it human development? Or is it social development? Or is it empowering genders? Or is it uplifting all political, all geographical areas, irrespective of their political or national or colloquial affiliations? You have panelists from Balochistan. That's such an amazing thing that you have gathered panelists from all over the country. So there is a term, equity. So looking forward, I think instead of equality, we have to sort of dwell more in the term equity, that we provide more opportunities to the areas, to those segments of the society who haven't had a chance for fair space in the national development. For example, our least developed areas, Balochistan or South Punjab or far-flung areas of KP or recently merged areas of FATA. And we divert our resources towards those areas. Similarly, gender empowerment is one of the most crucial, unless you empower half of your population and you make them politically and economically independent, you cannot dream of having any kind of development. Certainly you can never sustain it. Even if there is a sort of mirage of development of a macro level economic development, that's just a mirage, that's not real development. So somebody spoke about empowering youth. I completely agree. One thing that I want to say, that what people say that every crisis sort of offers an opportunity as well. So after this corona, I think our youth and especially our younger children have become really tech savvy. So we have this whole generation of people who are very comfortable with using technology. So if we were to somehow enable digital equality, I think a lot of opportunities can be created, because we, by force, we were converted to a lifestyle where we were supposed to use all these digital media for communication, for learning, for our professional lives. So I think that this pandemic has sort of given us an advantage in terms of our digital literacy. And I think using this digital literacy, we can aim towards achieving better development in all other walks of life, in education, in health, in sanitation, awareness campaign. Speakers before me spoke about the awareness campaign, that how just making women aware of basic sanitation steps, you can save a lot of lives. So I think this recently achieved digital sort of literacy can be used as a tool for achieving these goals. So I would be quick, and I just want to add, sort of sum up the whole discussion, that the solution lies with institutional strengthening and strengthening the governance framework, and all these interventions, whether they are UN or any other bodies, they are just catalysts. They are not going to prescribe for you what suits you the best. As a nation, as a country, as people, we have to give it a lot of thought, that what is the development, what are our social priorities, what is it that we want, where do we see us in 20 years, 50 years, what kind of country we want to leave for our children. So, and then use whatever resources are put at your disposal, and they're not big resources, they're very small resources. So all the more need to use those resources mindfully, and use those as vehicles for development, but the responsibility lies entirely with us. Wherever we are, I think, if we just start playing our role more effectively, conscientiously.
Thank you so much, Dr. Samina. You really touch upon the key concerns of Pakistan and Pakistani society. You very rightly mentioned that what is actually the development, how we define development, a very pertinent, very crucial question. Is it human development, social development, or agriculture development? So these are the questions that we really need to address. You talked about the digital literacy, which is the need of the time, no doubt. So that is the area where we need to bring new reforms. You talk about the strengthening governance system and governance framework. So thank you so much for highlighting such very key concerns of this nation, and we actually wanted that such kind of things need to be addressed, highlight, so that people should realize what is their role, institution may realize what is their role, and where they should leave the young generation. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Professor Dr. Iqrar Khan Saab, who is who's been awarded Star Imtiaz by the President of Pakistan. Dr. Iqrar Ahmed Khan is basically the horticulturist and botanist by profession. He has a career beyond 40 years in the field of agricultural growth, agriculture reforms, and academia. He is a graduate of the University of Agriculture of Faisalabad and University of California, Riverside. He has supervised more than 70 graduate students, including 14 PhDs he has produced, mashallah. He has undertaken 44 research projects and published 375 articles and books which are relevant to this very subject. He served as a vice chancellor of 2 universities, 9 year, more than 9 years. Perhaps this is his second tenure with the Agriculture University, and he founded 5 new universities and district campuses from 2008 till 2017. So, with having such a rich experience, having research, establishing research institute, including Chinese Confucius Institute of Bioenergy, and so many other contribution that he has in his plate. So obviously, the time is really short. Otherwise, I would love to share his other contribution. With this very brief introduction, let me invite Professor Dr. Iqrar Khan Sahab to share his thoughts, because he's agriculturist, horticulturist, academician. और हमारा जो मुल्क है वो that the more than 65% are living in the rural areas, और हमारा we are agrarian society. Sir, how do you see this development nexus जो भी हमने बात की, डॉक्टर समीना ने बात की, डॉक्टर शहजाद साहब ने बात की, डॉक्टर बखारी साहब ने बात की, सो आप कैसे देखते हैं being an agrarian country, हमें क्या challenges है, क्या हम अपने लिए वो जो हंगर की हम बात करते हैं, नो हंगर, जीरो पावर्टी की बात करते हैं, या लेस पावर्टी की बात करते हैं, तो कैसे आप इसको देखते हैं इस सारे सिनेरियो को? ओवर टू यू सर. सर आपका माइक ऑफ है सर.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Minhas sahab. I'm very happy to be part of this panel. बहुत अच्छी बातें हुई. ये 11 of the 17 SDGs are one way or the other connected with agriculture and food security. But today I will just try to focus on SDG 2, which is zero hunger. To give you just a quick overview, and while agreeing with what has been said by the distinguished panelists already, that we lack integration, maybe I could add one word, that we are suffering from bad governance all over. With that in the background, I would like to say that currently we have about 50 million acres of land which is being cultivated. And according to global standards, an acre can hold about 4 people with a complete nutritional supply of food. So we have already touched the limit. We are 200 million plus and 50 million acres. So there is a lack of now holding capacity in the land which is already under cultivation. Should we go for more land to be brought under cultivation, which is possible provided we have a better utilization of available water. The burning issue at this point in time is that the year which will conclude on 30th of June, we will end up importing about $10 billion worth of commodities and essential food items. And yet we continue to claim to be an agricultural country where backbone is agriculture of the economy, whatever we want to say it. We have 40% malnourished population, and we are one of the major targets of devastations caused by climate change, and our regional advantages currently kind of disadvantage that there is smuggling of wheat, smuggling of fertilizer, and cartelization in the markets because there are some regional advantages and disadvantages in that. To me, there is a silver lining. The silver lining is that there is plenty of technology on the shelf, and we have land and people in who are willing to make best use of available technologies, but their capacity to adapt technology, absorb technology is limited. That particularly is because of small farming community. They do not have access to credit. If they have access to credit, then there is market manipulation both in the input side of the supply chain as well as on the output side of the supply chain. I would like to cite the current example, the current wheat season, for which the harvesting in Sindh is already started, and the Punjab shall be harvesting wheat in little over 6 weeks. We had a wonderful start. In Punjab particularly, our classical recipe is that we should complete sowing of wheat within the month of November. And this year, 90% of that target was achieved. And there was plenty of outreach and capacity building of the farmers and systems that at least we become self-sufficient in wheat, because last year we ended up importing 3 million ton of wheat, while we remained surplus in the previous several years. Now, having done that, we saw bad governance. The governance that has, been able to make sure that fertilizer in the market is available, and fertilizer in the market is available at the labeled price. That did not happen. A urea bag, which was normally to be sold 16 to 1800, that touched 3,000 rupees a piece, and yet it was not available. The DAP bag, which was supposed to have been sold under 5,000, that went up to 12,000, and it was not available. It was available in the black markets only. And so these two simple elements show the bad governance, which will add to our zero hunger challenges. But I would still say that the glass is half full, and that we have technology, and we have the farming community, which is connected to the land still, even though they don't want to, but they don't have any alternatives. When I say they don't want to, if you take survey your social sciences institution, and I have talked to Abid many times, that take a survey of rural Pakistan and find out how many families want that their next generation continue to be a farmer. And you will not find many, or you will hardly find any. So in that situation, zero hunger remains a top challenge. In addition to what I have said about the production system, that is the land holding, the technology, the capacity of the farmer to absorb and deliver, we have to also continue to invest into the systems, particularly climate adaptations. We have done a agroecological zoning, and we believe that it should be data driven, and that should provide decision support systems by which you enable the farmers to adapt in terms of refixing the cropping system, cropping scheme, farming operations. And then there has to be entrepreneurial investment through a policy environment, that precision agriculture tools are introduced. Precision in terms of making best use of 365 days of a year, every drop of water, every gram of fertilizer, and every minute of the labor, so that the cost of production is managed. And then the marketplace needs to be made more transparent and competitive. I just gave you the example of fertilizer. Take the example of wheat again, and you will see in 2 months that the government will impose Section 44, which will stop inter-district movement of wheat. And by that, the farmer, mostly a small farmer, who is unable to hold the wheat, they will end up selling it at lower than the market price. And those who will buy, the moment the Section 44 is released, they will take it and cross the same wheat by truckloads to another country. So for last 3 years, the international price of wheat is far higher than what is the price being paid to the farmer. So this is a market manipulation. This is the cartelization, and this is the other two speakers agree to the lack of integration, but I will not hesitate in adding the word lack of good governance. We're also very conscious of looking at zero hunger as a challenge through the lens of what we consume. We have a dietary pattern which is not healthy. World over, staple foods are wheat, rice, corn, soybean, and potatoes. These are the major grains produced and consumed in the world. We are producing plenty of rice, yet our consumption of rice is relatively low, but it is fairly high compared to what we used to have 40 years ago. But in case of wheat, our over-reliance is also a cause of hunger and malnutrition. Wheat, which is a food that we are used to, is kind of addictive food. It has gluten in it. Gluten is not a healthy component of food ingredients. We believe that we need to diversify this dietary habit. There is conscious effort required to add more food items into our everyday menu. And particularly, I would like to promote the cause of currently surplus food item, which is maize. We're producing more than 8 million tons of maize, and the major buyers are actually Rafan and poultry feed industry, which consume less than 5 million. Quite a bit of that has now started being converted into silage for the livestock, but still we have surplus maize, and consumption of maize can be promoted as a blended flour that will not only dilute the gluten content in wheat, but that will also improve the overall texture and the composition of the flour that we consume every day. We also have a chance to introduce soybean as a successful crop. Soybean in the neighboring Punjab, not just greater India, but in Punjab even, soybean, which was never a crop 10, 15 years ago, is now a successful kharif crop. And I think I'm working with many groups to promote soybean. So diversification of food intake is also one of my suggestions that could address zero hunger. So, and finally, we're currently in the process of working with a SaaS program to set up a nutrition center, which is already very much progressing, through which we want to promote the intake of indigenous foods by reviving some of the traditional food intake items. It's, as I said, that diversifying the diet, the dairy element of our diet has kind of gotten weaker, and there's space for that. Thanks to cheap poultry, there is sufficient protein supply, still very affordable. It may not be affordable with the poorest of the poor, but most of the people can easily afford and have enough protein intake. But then there is also case of lifestyles, that most of the stunting and wasting actually takes place in the first 1,000 days. So there's a case for nutrition education and nutrition capacity building. To summarize, I would like to say that we have land, but we need to be better water utilizer. We need to make efficient use of water. We have technology on the shelf. We have to create an environment and governance structure that technology gets adopted, and we have to make markets fair, competitive, which are equally responsive to the producer and the consumer. In the current case, producer is suffering and the consumer is suffering even more. So the market governance is probably one of the significant element that needs to be addressed, and it's pure governance case. And then finally, adaptations to the climate. So with these few simple recipes, which are easy to tell, but not easy to implement because of our bad governance. Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much for every time highlighting the key concern of the agriculture economy and food-related concerns. You categorically said so. It's a bad governance. So, of course, having a land which is not very much sufficient. You mentioned that 50 million hectare land is under cultivation, whereas 200 plus million population is actually seeking food from that land. So that is a challenge. The technology is there, you mentioned, but environmental governance is really needed. Nutrition challenges are there. Of course, you are one of the real expert of this this area of agriculture development, agriculture economy. You mentioned entrepreneurship concern. So, sir, thank you very much. Remain with us. We would like to have some more questions from you. Let me move forward to my next panelist. Let's have Dr. Fatima Rehan Dar. He's purely an educationist, and she is in academia for the last more than 26 years. She's a hardcore national, international academician, and also a development sector professional. Her areas of work includes educational reforms, curriculum and teacher development, professional training and research. She has served as dean and director with many higher education institutions and universities. Currently, she is the CEO of the OP Consulting, which provide consultancy services in the field of teacher development, research, curriculum and material development, educational reforms, monitoring and evaluation, corporate leadership, people management skills, and language development. With this very brief introduction, Dr. Fatma Rehan Dar, we welcome you to this August forum, and we would like to know that as the previous speakers has mentioned about agriculture reforms, agriculture development, climate change concerns, uh, Dr. Shahzad has mentioned, Dr. Bokhari has mentioned about the health related gaps and challenges. So the question is that you are an academician. So what sort of stuff our universities are producing if there is a bad governance, if there are malpractices, if the experts are not capable enough to address the need of the time? So how come we can say that our academia is forming something which is of good quality? So we would like to know more from your side this academic role, and also the contribution of female faculty or the female students, those who are becoming professional, how much you are satisfied that they are actually contributing in the nation building process. So with this very pertinent brief questions, let me invite Dr. Fatima Dar. Dr. Fatima, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Shahid Saab, for giving me this opportunity to speak, at this August forum. And I was delighted to hear the suggestions and comments of the professional luminaries that you have gathered here. So thank you very much. The subject of my brief talk will center around education, and also what is happening in higher education and what are the way forwards, because it is very important to seek solutions to the problem. Now, I would particularly, hint at what happened during the pandemic and the subsequent areas for improvement, that got outlined as a result of the pandemic. You see, from March 16, 2019, I think that was the day, 2020, I think that was the day when everything was shut down. The educational facilities were shut down. तकरीबन एक अंदाजे के मुताबिक तकरीबन 40 million students जो थे, they were affected with this, with this wave of COVID-19, and everything came to a halt. This exposed, various deficiencies of the education system. The foremost being strong educational leadership. So I will put it, as the foremost thing to be debated here. That strong leadership, और मेरा ख्याल है कि हमारे बाकी साथियों ने भी इस पर जोर दिया है, strong leadership के ऊपर. Strong leadership was something that was required to handle this generational catastrophe. I would put it as generational, catastrophe, क्योंकि इतने learning gaps आ गए हैं हमारे अंदर, और compensatory learning की इतनी शदीद जरूरत है. ये 2 साल में जो हुआ है, उसमें we are still not debating about this whole aspect of compensatory learning. We switched on to online mode of education, and then there were gaps in it because none of us were ready, to switch on seamlessly to this absolutely, new mode of learning. So compensatory learning is something that we are not talking about at all. We have just moved on again. So I think there is a gap in strong leadership. My main focus of, attention is curriculum. What is it that we are doing with curriculum? The whole world is talking about these new ways, and we are talking about the fact that we are never going to go back to the old ways. So what is it that academia is doing, to bring innovation in the curriculum? The whole world is talking about the creation of 133 million jobs, which would require a different skill set. And we are not producing the right kind of graduates to undertake those jobs. So what will these graduates do with this 2 years of learning gap? Will they qualify to take up these jobs which require skills? World Bank and Asian Development Bank is hinting towards the fact that very soon we will not be requiring degrees for people to enter into the job market. They would require skills. So are we producing graduates who are skilled enough to undertake and fulfill this huge job market? So where are those skills? What is the curriculum doing about those skills? So we need to, first of all, seriously think about integrating the contemporary trends in the curriculum. What I mean by contemporary trends is bringing in the aspect of skills, income generation skills, job, which align with the job market. Secondly, what we need to do is to make our curriculum more inclusive. What I mean by inclusive is that we need to educate ourselves from the different contexts that these people are coming from. For example, 1 million children, are expected to drop out of the system of schooling in Pakistan due to the COVID. So what are we doing towards them? How are we integrating, and integrating important aspects in the curriculum to accommodate these people? Are we talking about community-based education? Are we talking about skill-based education? Are we talking about non-formal systems of education? To include this big number into the educational fold. Again, talking about curriculum reforms. One thing that we are not, thinking about is that artificial intelligence is sweeping the world. It is sweeping the world, and there have been talks about, replacement of human resource with artificial intelligence. So what are we doing about it? How is the curriculum catering to it? Are we, catering to the important aspect of, more integrated aspects of, social sciences? The whole aspect of making the curriculum inclusive by giving importance to social sciences, because we need to have a balance. We need to achieve an equilibrium between science and social sciences. So we are still not talking about it. So that is why I'm hinting again and again towards strong leadership, and again, strong governance systems. What is it that the national education policy is doing about it? We are still not thinking about it. We are, I think, not cognizant of the fact that this huge surge of artificial intelligence is striking at our door, and we are still not. We are talking about skill-based education, but not talking about integrating it in the present curriculum. So that is something very important. The whole aspect of catering to the important element of wellness, of mental well-being, integrating it into the curriculum. The whole world was struck for 2 years with this pandemic that actually affected the mental well-being of so many people. So how is it being catered to in academia? So that is again something that we need to talk about. The second important aspect that I think needs a bit of attention is pedagogy. What is it that we are doing and to help our teachers, combat these external forces? Our teachers were not prepared when the pandemic came. So we had to do a lot of work in training them to teach online. So what are we doing to capacitate this huge teaching body? So we need to, for example, educate them, train them to help students co-create knowledge, because there is now a movement towards self-directed autonomous learning. This huge movement towards personalized learning. So what are teachers doing to, to help these learners become self-directed autonomous learners? We need to be educating our teachers to follow more inquiry-based, approaches which promote critical thinking, which promote skills such as, skills which promote connectivity, curiosity. Critical thinking is something that I have already talked about. The third important thing that I think that needs a lot of attention is technology enabled. As I said earlier, that we are never going to go back to the normal. So what is academia doing to, to sustain such things? Because when we talk about sustainability, we need to talk about these three very important elements: the curriculum, the pedagogy, and now this technology enabled learning. Now, 26% of our urban youth still has no access to technology. So if you are saying that we need to, educate our youth through these various modes, virtual modes like online, blended, or hybrid modes, so where is the provision of technology? The best of the universities, had to go on the back burner when the pandemic struck, because they, went, towards capacitating their learning management systems further in order to carry on the teaching learning process. What about, a huge population of student body residing in remote areas where access to the internet was an impossibility? So that is why, there have been great learning gaps, and we need to have sustained efforts, again, and it has to start from the government. And I think that in the beginning, our colleagues were absolutely right in saying that we need to prioritize our efforts as to who would take the charge, and we need to now get away with this system of compartmentalization in our operations, and need to think about all these different modes. For example, the synchronous and the asynchronous modes, increasing access to technology. What are we doing? How are different departments of government, as well as the private sector, as well as the semi-government sector, how are they synchronizing their efforts to align all these trends on one platform and make learning possible? And lastly, I would say that education is at the core of any human development. When we talk about poverty, when we talk about hunger, health, they are all complementary processes, and I think education tops it all and through education we make awareness possible. So we need to make these concentrated efforts in, number one, in having strong leadership, and at the same time what we need to do is to have the right people at the right place. Unfortunately, I would be very blunt in saying that we do not have the right people at the right place. And again, one thing is very important: equity and inclusion is very important. You see, we keep talking about equality, we keep talking about equalizing the effects. Very seldom we talk about the aspect of bringing equity in education, because education involves equity. And then one thing that is very important is that even the private sector needs to come forward in this whole effort of bringing education accessible to the communities, taking it to the remote areas. We keep urbanizing the concept. As far as the private education sector is concerned, it's an urban concept. So we need to partner with the government. We need to partner at the provincial level, with the provincial governments, and need to take unified steps, to bring an end to this educational emergency. The effects are going to come in the next 5-6 years of these 2 years that we have lost. So the numbers will come forward. Already, we are, quite low. For example, I was reading in the Dawn that in South Asia, the female internet usage is only 18%. So when we talk about gender equity, you see, these are the figures that are causes for concern for us. So we need to, focus on these areas and, make concentrated efforts. First of all, let's come on one platform, prioritizing efforts, contextualizing issues, and then moving forward. Thank you very much, Shahid.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dar, for highlighting the leadership gaps in academia, and also highlighting that there is a need to engage students with the contemporary skills, which is the need of the time. Of course, social sciences versus pure sciences need to be equally given importance if we really want to improve critical thinking, which is the essence for a society. You very rightly mentioned all these things. I think we have a number of questions from the audience, from the participants. If I may request to my colleague, Miss Aisha, Aisha, अगर आप हमारे साथ share कर लें कि जो questions आए हैं, so if we can throw these questions to the panelists, ताकि हम इनसे इनका ले सकें response, and then we'll quickly move to the second round of final thoughts from the audience. So उससे पहले हम चाहते हैं कि आप हमारे साथ जरा questions जो हैं वो share कर लें. जी आयशा.
Thank you, Shahid Sahab. It was a very insightful discussion, and we have quite a few questions over here. I think the first question, if we still have Shahzad Ali Khan, it would be more appropriate if he responds to this, but any of the panelists can respond to it. The question is, after 18 amendment and distribution of resources, how small provinces with limited budget for health and education will incorporate latest teachings, learnings, and services standards? And how can SDPI or HEC enhance skill-based teaching methodologies with affordable fee structure for common men? Shahid, your mic is mute.
जी आयशा, थैंक यू. आई थिंक कि डॉक्टर हबीब साहब हमारे साथ हैं, तो उनसे हम इसका क्वेश्चन लेते हैं. पहले जो हेल्थ का कंसर्न आया है, और फिर हम जो है वो बाकी की उसमें चले जाते हैं. और अगर आप चाहें तो आयशा एक दो और क्वेश्चन थ्रो कर दें, ताकि बाकी पैनलिस्ट जो हैं जिनकी तरफ हो वो भी इसमें ले सकें, या 1 by 1 चलते हैं जैसे आप कंफर्टेबल.
सर क्वेश्चंस काफी ज्यादा हैं, तो अगर आप पहले हबीब साहब के से ले लें.
ठीक है,
Thank you very much. I think Dr. Dar has already elaborated that how basically we can deal with this education challenge after post-COVID or COVID के दौरान. There has been a massive MOOCs का इस वक्त massive open online courses are available, and we need to really focus on a skill, as she rightly pointed out. The World Bank ने already skill-based learning के ऊपर बहुत emphasis किया है. Degrees will be irrelevant, or teachers, as a matter of fact, will become irrelevant unless and until they are not prepared. Now everything is recorded, everything has been visualized. अब ये वो time आ गया है जब we have to deal with the students in a very pragmatic way, because students are always ahead of us in terms of ये so सारा हमारा education और knowledge का जो content already available है Coursera से लेकर, there are so many online courses available, content available. Until and until pedagogy and methodology is not being properly जिसके ऊपर work ना किया जाए, we will not be able to basically attract the attention of the students, और उनको ज़्यादा अच्छे से सिखा नहीं सकेंगे. इस पे कोई शक नहीं है. तो पहले तो वो स्टूडेंट्स के टीचर्स की वो खेप तैयार करनी है, जिसके ऊपर हमें बहुत सारा काम करना है. We always keep on talking about skill-based learning, but वही उस्ताद जो मार्केट में अवेलेबल है वही आपको मुख्तलिफ डिग्रीज के साथ, मुख्तलिफ लेवल्स के साथ मिलेंगे, और पढ़ाने वाले वही होंगे. तो we have really need to work and focus. हम करना क्या चाह रहे हैं और किस किस्म की स्किल्स इम्पार्ट करना चाह रहे हैं, और उसके लिए ह्यूमन रिसोर्स और टीचर्स जो हैं वो प्रॉपरली ट्रेन है कि नहीं है. तो ये कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग का काम कॉन्टिन्यूस वर्क है, करिकुलम के ऊपर कॉन्टिन्यूस काम होना है. ये एक दिन का काम नहीं है, और ये मुसलसल जो है HEC ने इसके ऊपर काम करना है. However, having said that, एजुकेशन और हेल्थ ऐसे सब्जेक्ट से जिसको रीगल फ्रेमवर्क की जरूरत है, और सूबों को मिलके किस तरह से वफाक के साथ इंटीग्रेट होना है, ये बहुत जरूरी काम है, जिसके ऊपर वी ऑलवेज फील के इसके ऊपर बहुत सारी सैर हासिल गुफ्तगू होने की जरूरत है. इसके ऊपर हमारे बहुत सारे वाइस चांसलर्स का भी इत्तफाक हुआ, काफी सारी इसके ऊपर डिबेट हुई, लेकिन लीगल फ्रेमवर्क जरूर चाहिए होगा इन ऑर्डर टू, कहते हैं इंक्लूसिवनेस की अप्रोच. मेरा बच्चा बलोचिस्तान के फार रिमोट एरियाज में बैठा है या बल्तिस्तान में बैठा है, तो उसको भी उसी क्वालिटी की एजुकेशन मिलनी चाहिए जो कि सेंटर में बैठे हुए बच्चों को मिलनी चाहिए. और ये एक पिरामिड है बेसिकली. इट्स राइट फ्रॉम द प्राइमरी एजुकेशन, सेकेंडरी, उसके ऊपर हमने बिल्कुल छोड़ दिया फोकस करना. क्वालिटी हाई एजुकेशन के ऊपर तो बहुत सारी बात हो रही है. अभी पिछले दिनों बहस हो रही है कि ग्रेजुएट्स उस क्वालिटी के क्यों नहीं प्रोड्यूस हो रहे, बिकॉज देयर इज अ लैक ऑफ कनेक्टिविटी बिटवीन दीज डिफरेंट सिस्टम्स. अगर हम अपने बच्चों को, अभी एक गुफ्तगू हो रही है कि हम अपने बच्चों को अंडर ग्रेड के बाद PhD में लेके आए, जरूर लेके आए, provided that our system in the beginning is making them capable enough to grasp those depth or width of the knowledge. अगर वो तैयार होके नहीं आते और यूनिवर्सिटियों में 2-2 साल उनको हमें वो बेसिक चीजें सिखानी पड़ती है जो बाहर की दुनिया में वो हायर सेकेंडरी स्कूल्स के अंदर कर रहे होते हैं, कॉलेजेस में कर रहे होते हैं, तो then it's fine. So we need to really overhauling of education system चाहिए. और having said that, कोविड ने हमें बहुत सारे सबक सिखाए. तो डॉक्टर डार फरमा रही थी, देखिए हमें इस वक्त इकोसिस्टम के ऊपर काम करना है, और वो इकोसिस्टम इज अ सेंट्रल फोकस here is the individual health, here is the community health, and center के अंदर global health आ गई है. एक individual भी अगर आपका कोरोना के साथ मुतासिर है तो whole world is basically vulnerable. तो same with the society, अगर हम यही वाला मॉडल अपने मुल्क में ले आए और हेल्थ को और एजुकेशन को इसी तरह से इंटीग्रेट कर लें कि हमने हर इंडिविजुअल को इंक्लूसिवनेस की अप्रोच के जरिए से अप्रोच करना है, और वो वायबल और बहुत बड़ा माइंड जो कि किसी डिस्कवरी के अंदर, ग्रोथ के अंदर नहीं एंटर हो रहा, उसको लेके आइए, एंड आई एम श्योर यू विल सी अ मार्क डिफरेंस in terms of innovations, in terms of a lot of, more brains, more basically innovation power, knowledge house will be available, और knowledge economy की तरफ वो step right होगा, बजाय इसके कि हम focus कर लें छोटी सी क्लास के ऊपर. And there are few steps which government has taken, उसके ऊपर inclusiveness की बड़ी वाज़े मिसाल और अप्रोच जो है, अच्छी चीजें मदरसा के बच्चों को भी लेके आए मेन स्ट्रीम के अंदर, इसी तरह बाकी दूसरे जो बच्चे हैं उनको भी लेके आए. तो ये बड़ी जरूरी स्टेप्स हैं जो एजुकेशन को भी अप्रूव करेंगे, और हेल्थ का भी बिल्कुल इसी तरह से ताल्लुक है. तो आई थिंक डॉक्टर डार probably would be even answer on this in a better way. Thank you.
Thank you sir, thank you so much doctor. Let's have a couple of more question. या इस पे कोई और साथी अगर कोई बात करना चाहे, जो भी क्वेश्चन आए हैं, या मजीद क्वेश्चन ले लें. मेरा ख्याल है डॉक्टर साइशा 2-3 और क्वेश्चन ले लें ताकि फिर पैनलिस्ट के लिए आसान हो जाएगा.
Ji, so there are a few questions for Dr. Samina, and what are ways to utilize the skill of youth? And if we have coped so effectively with the pandemic, why do we lack the enthusiasm in eradicating polio? The other question is why implementation of policies is so difficult in Pakistan, and how can we overcome those hurdles? These are for Dr. Samina. Do you want me to go to the other questions as well? There is some for Dr. Iqrar.
मेरे ख्याल डॉक्टर समीना से रिस्पांस ले लें, फिर डॉक्टर इकरार साहब की तरफ चलते हैं.
जी, आई थिंक सिद्रा ने सवाल किया था कि अगर हमारा कोरोना में इफेक्टिव रिस्पांस रहा है तो अभी तक हम पोलियो को क्यों नहीं इरेडिकेट कर सके. इन द प्रेजेंस ऑफ सच एमिनेंट पब्लिक हेल्थ स्पेशलिस्ट, मुझे शायद इस पे बात करनी तो नहीं चाहिए, बट फ्रॉम व्हाट आई गैदर आई थिंक पोलियो का इशू बहुत ज्यादा पोलिटिसाइज हो गया था. If you recall, there was a specific incident that happened in Ahmedabad, और after that वो polio drops के साथ और उसके साथ इतने political और एक social resentment associate हो गई थी कि उसमें थोड़ी सी बहुत ज़्यादा public resistance आ गई. Although कोरोना में भी कुछ हद तक international politics और even national voices ऐसी रही हैं जो जिनको एंटी वैक्सीन कैंपेन्स कहा जाता है, लेकिन आई थिंक गवर्नमेंट हमारी भी और इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी वाज आल्सो सॉर्ट ऑफ एबल टू ओवरकम दोज इन अ मोर इफेक्टिव वे, जो कि हम अपने नेशनल लेवल पे पोलियो के लिए नहीं कर पाए. बट दैट वाज एक अनफॉर्चुनेट इंसिडेंट था जिसने हमारी पोलियो कैंपेन को बहुत ज़्यादा इफेक्ट किया. एंड आई थिंक जो हमारे साथ पब्लिक हेल्थ स्पेशलिस्ट हैं वो इस पे और भी कमेंट कर सकते हैं. देयर कुड बी सम अदर एंट्री केसेस जिसका मैं अवेयर नहीं हूँ. एक और क्वेश्चन था कि जी पॉलिसीज इम्प्लीमेंट क्यों नहीं होती हैं. नाउ दिस इज $1 million क्वेश्चन जो कि एज अ पब्लिक सर्वेंट मैंने पिछले 25 साल से ग्रैपल किया है. एंड नाउ आई एम सॉर्ट ऑफ इन द डेवलपमेंट सेक्टर, और एक इंस्टीट्यूशन डेवलपमेंट को मैं दूसरे एंगल से देख रही हूँ. बट आई थिंक माई आंसर और माई थॉट ऑन दिस वुड बी instead of expecting someone else implementing these policies, हम सब इस system के अंदर किसी न किसी form में एक हिस्सा हैं. We are a cog in this big system. So if each individual, हर इकाई अगर अपना role सही तरीके से apply करने deliver करने लग जाए, तो I think there could be some ripple effect जो कि start हो जाएगा. लेकिन एक चीज जो मुझे समझ में आती है वो ये कि हमारी continuity नहीं है. जो मैंने अपनी गुफ्तगू के शुरू में कहा था कि हमें कुछ ऐसा गवर्नेंस सिस्टम और इंस्टीट्यूशनल सिस्टम डेवलप करने की जरूरत है कि अगर पॉलिटिकल अनसर्टेनिटी हो भी तो वो गवर्नेंस और इंस्टीट्यूशनल सिस्टम इंटैक्ट रहे. होता यही है कि एक अच्छी पॉलिसी आती है, वो हाफ वे अभी चली होती है, तो पॉलिटिकल प्रायोरिटीज चेंज हो जाती हैं, वो स्कीम स्क्रैप होती है, समथिंग एल्स इज इंट्रोड्यूस्ड, एंड एज समबडी सेड नथिंग गेट्स डन एट द एंड. So a lot of time and energy is wasted in that. So we somehow need to ensure continuity in good policies. And secondly, all of us as individuals, wherever we are, we need to play our own role more effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Samina, for very pertinent responses. Ji, Aisha?
The next couple of questions are for Dr. Iqrar. The first one is for the best utilization of the 365 days cropping. What will be the best strategy to educate and update a farmer for the climate change conditions, and how can we propose safety measures? Is there any possibility to launch a national digital awareness program through Android apps with verbal instructions? And the other question is, on March 2021, the wheat prices globally were $6.5. And on March 8, 2022, they have hiked to $11.6, where our cultivated wheat is far less than the previous year. How can we stop the impact of price hike and curtail the upcoming wheat crisis? And why is not possible to develop improved varieties rather than going to alternate foods? There are 3 questions for Dr. Iqrar.
डॉक्टर साहब माइक भी ऑन कर लें और बहुत क्वेश्चन आपकी तरफ बम्बारमेंट हुई है
नहीं बहुत अच्छे क्वेश्चन है आई एम थैंकफुल टू द listeners for posing important questions. When I said 365 days, I meant that cropping intensity, which has been going up. When the Indus water systems, irrigation systems were designed in 1870s, they were designed at 60% cropping intensity, which means 60% of the land in 365 days shall be put under cultivation. Now it's 150%, and it is bound to go to 200 to 300%. And that can happen by bringing in new varieties which are determinate, shorter duration, which are better to escape pest pressure, which can be adapted to range of day length and temperature variations at the sowing time, at the harvesting time. We have seen this happen. This is not something that has not happened in the past. The cotton is an example. Cotton used to be an 8 months crop. Now it is wheat after cotton after wheat and wheat after cotton because of reduction in duration and heat tolerance. The next phase of cotton transformation or revolution will take place once we have a cotton which is about 4 months or less in duration, and we could have 2 cotton crops like we have 2 corn crop. Actually, second corn crop occurred only in last 30-35 years. There used to be only 1 corn crop. So 365 days, I meant cropping intensity and making best use of changing weather conditions because of our topography from sea level to all the way highest mountains. So the technology is, as I said, on the shelf, and more technologies in the pipeline. But the important question which you have raised is educating the farmer. Yes, that's where we have not done as good as we could have, and you are pointed towards use of digital facilities. Digitization with something like half of the population now holding a mobile telephone, but the internet service may not be sufficient. That needs to be invested in. It has to be made user friendly, and I agree with someone saying that it will be AI applications which will make the use of digital applications smarter and accessible, particularly to the rural youth. I made already a comment that the rural youth is not interested in continuing there where they are. There has to be a paradigm, a new paradigm, how to make them entrepreneurial, how to bring in services structure, and how to make the farmers partner in the new evolution of farm management. The current farm management is simply uneconomical. The current farm management is underemployment. It is not full employment, or even it is not even a decent work environment for the people on the farm. So artificial intelligence and digital tools do offer a new option for us. About the wheat price, you have rightly said that it has jumped from 6 to 11, so nearly double. Whereas in Pakistan, after a hard work, it had gone up from 18 to 1950 last year, and this year from 1950 to 2200. But timing is wrong, bad time of decision. This is not the time to propose new price for wheat in the month of February and March. This must have been done in the last September, so that farmer could have borrowed money to invest more into fertilizer, etc., knowing that the wheat price will be fair. 1800, 1900 is not a fair price. Even 2200 is not, when the international price has jumped from 6 to 11. That translates into almost 35 to 3600 rupees 40 kg. एक मन की कीमत जो है, जो इंटरनेशनल प्राइस के मुताबिक तो 3,500 से 4,000 को टच करेगी, और आप 2200 रुपये ऑफर कर रहे हैं. जब आप 2200 रुपये ऑफर कर रहे हैं तो wheat will remain under stress, because we have better rabi options now being introduced to the farmer, and farmer knowing very well that planting canola is actually more rewarding than planting wheat, and that's actually good for our economy also, because we're importing edible oil worth 3 to 4 billion US dollar, and canola would be a import substitution. Also, I would like to say that bringing wheat under stress will create an environment for more investment in wheat to gain the productivity gap. Our current productivity of wheat is around 30, and the potential is 60. And our neighbor is close to 50. So if we cannot go to 60, at least we can reach close to our neighbor. If not 50, let's first jump to 40. This year we were only aiming from going from 30 to 33, 34. But the fertilizer scandal has restricted that potential. So let's see wheat under pressure, so that more technology investment takes place. There are varieties. There's no shortage of varieties, particularly in wheat. And let me tell you, in wheat, the current varieties have potential of 60, while we are harvesting 30. I know that in future, we need to have new genetics in wheat, which will be very different, which will be climate resilient. But at this time, when I say that technology in the shelf, that means there are varieties, there are fertilizer combinations, there are data decision support system, which allow for reaching 60. It's a demonstrated potential. So let wheat come more under stress and pressure, and that will lead us towards self-correction. That will create an environment for better investment. Look at what has happened in case of corn. Before the introduction of hybrid corn, before the introduction of 2 cropping seasons, our average was 15, which is now 80, potential is 150. So 10 times growth potential is demonstrated, and we are harvesting about 8 times. And that same formula is applicable to wheat. It is now being applied in rice, and rice production landscape is changing. In last 5 years, rice production in the country has nearly doubled. In case of corn, in last 10 years, it has tripled, and that can happen for wheat.
Sir, if you can be very brief, we have a couple of more questions. Time is really short, sir.
I'm done, Ji. I'm done. Thank you.
Sir, thank you so much, Doctor, for highlighting these. The next question, Ms. Aisha.
The next couple of questions are for Dr. Fatima Dar. How can we prepare our primary school teachers for integration of digital technology in their teachings? And how can we do assessment of psychomotor domain during online teaching, train teachers and engage students? Aside from that, how can we ensure that general skills and specific skills are inculcated in university graduates, whether HEC has some plan on it, or what is the government policy on it? And lastly, no, that's still not the last. How can we teach skills during a pandemic in absence of physical mode of learning? Which new changes are made? I think this one is general question, so I'll maybe ask it in the end, and the above few are for Dr. Fatima Dar.
If I may request to Dr. Fatma to be very, very crispy here, because of shortage of time, please, Dr. Fatma. Please respond all the questions.
Ji, although the questions demand a lengthy response, but I'll be very brief. I know that time is short. देखिए, जहाँ तक टीचर्स की बात है, दो चीजें बड़ी अहम है. पहली बात तो ये देखना है कि जो हमारे टीचर डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम्स हैं, उनकी रिवैम्पिंग बहुत जरूरी है, जो मौजूदा हालात हैं उनके पेश नजर. So what we really need to see कि हमारे जो मौजूदा टीचर डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम्स हैं, उसमें कितनी हम ट्रेनिंग टीचर्स को ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन में दे रहे हैं. पहली बात तो ये है. दूसरी बात ये है कि मैं एक रिसेंट स्टडी पढ़ रही थी, उसमें वो ये कह रहे हैं कि 46% ऑफ ऑल पाकिस्तानीज हैव एक्सेस टू द इंटरनेट. नाउ हाउ इज दैट इंटरनेट बीइंग यूटिलाइज्ड? दैट इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट. हमारी अगेन बात वही है कि हमारी कंपार्टमेंटलाइज्ड एफर्ट्स हैं. दीज एफर्ट्स नीड टू कम टुगेदर using the resource for the right purpose. तो पहली बात तो ये है कि from the primary to the tertiary sector, teacher development जितने programs हैं उनको दोबारा देखने की जरूरत है, और उसमें technology enabled professional development programs पर तवज्जो देने की जरूरत है. दूसरी बात, एक सवाल जो है वो स्किल बेस्ड एजुकेशन की तरफ था. अगेन मैं ये कहूंगी कि स्किल बेस्ड एजुकेशन को हम एक अलहदा वर्टिकल के तौर के ऊपर क्यों देख रहे हैं. स्किल बेस्ड एजुकेशन जो है, इसको हम सेफली इंटीग्रेट कर सकते हैं अपने मौजूदा करिकुलम में, अगेन फ्रॉम द प्राइमरी टू द टर्शरी लेवल. तो इसको देखने की जरूरत है, और उसके लिए पॉलिसी लेवल के ऊपर काम करने की जरूरत है. अगर हम अलहदा से देखेंगे तो फिर अगेन उसके लिए आपको अलहदा ह्यूमन रिसोर्स चाहिए, हर चीज की तैयारी चाहिए. अगर आप इसको सेफली कॉन्टेक्स्ट बेस्ड अप्रोच के साथ इंटीग्रेट मौजूदा करिकुलम में करेंगे तो मेरा ख्याल है आसानी ज्यादा हो जाएगी. तो वेरी ब्रीफली मैं इन दो सवालात का तो जवाब दे सकती हूँ. with an added focus, please do not consider skill-based programs as isolated, compartmentalized programs. Please think of them as being inclusive and as part of an integrated system of the entire university or school college curriculum. Thank you.
थैंक यू डॉक्टर फातिमा. एक क्वेश्चन जो था, जो मैंने भी देखा कि हाउ SDPI HEC इनहेंस स्किल बेस्ड टीचिंग मेथडोलॉजीज. उस पर चूँकि SDPI में सेंटर फॉर लर्निंग एंड डेवलपमेंट काम कर रहा है, मैं उस पर काम कर रहा हूँ कि टीचिंग प्रोग्राम जो है, टीचर ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम, आई थिंक इस पे अभी थोड़ा सा हमें मज़ीद अगर हम इस पे काम कर रहे हैं, सो जैसे डॉक्टर फातिमा ने कहा कि इस पे सिनर्जीज बिल्ड करने की ज़रूरत है. यकीनन हम HEC के साथ ही नहीं बल्कि प्राइवेट पब्लिक सेक्टर इंस्टीट्यूशन की कोलैबोरेशन में एक होलिस्टिक अप्रोच अपनाने जा रहे हैं, जिसमें क्वालिटी टीचर्स, क्वालिटी लर्निंग, क्वालिटी असेसमेंट की तरफ हमारा फोकस होगा. यकीनन डॉक्टर फातिमा भी उसका हिस्सा होंगी, और HEC के साथ और दूसरी यूनिवर्सिटीज़ के साथ मिलकर हम इस प्रोग्राम को कर रहे होंगे. आई थिंक कुछ और क्वेश्चन भी होंगे. अगर आयशा कोई बहुत ज़्यादा क्वेश्चन नहीं है तो मैं एक जो है वे फॉरवर्ड लेना चाह रहा हूँ अपने डिस्टिंग्विश्ड पैनलिस्ट से. अगर कोई बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन
सर उसी में अगर आप ये ऐड कर लें आखिरी क्वेश्चन, और उस वे फॉरवर्ड में वो भी ये भी एड्रेस कर दें कि व्हाट न्यू चेंजेस आर मेड इन द नेशनल करिकुलम and how can we differentiate the national curriculum from the single national curriculum, and that will be it from my side. Thank you.
national curriculum versus single national curriculum. ये ठीक हो गया. थैंक यू. अगरचे टाइम की हमेशा से कंस्ट्रेन रही है, मैं चाहूँगा कि बहुत क्रिस्पी सा इतनी डिटेल डिस्कशन और इस पे फर्दर डिस्कशन की ज़रूरत है, लेकिन मैं चाहूँगा कि जो हमारे पैनलिस्ट हैं उन पे हम ले सकें.
सारी टीम आए हुए तो मुझे नोट्स पे
ऑब्वियसली. डॉक्टर समीना, क्या आप हमें की मैसेज देती हैं वे फॉरवर्ड, किस चीज़ पे हमें जाना चाहिए आइंदा के जो साल हैं, 2-3 साल पे हमें किस चीज़ पे फोकस करना चाहिए?
जी, आई थिंक कंक्लूजन में जो बात बिल्कुल स्टार्ट में हुई थी कि फ्रेगमेंटेड अप्रोच और डुप्लिसिटी ऑफ एफर्ट और लैक ऑफ प्रायोरिटीज, lack of inclusiveness, ये सारे identify हुए थे as problems. So going forward, obviously we need to make sure that we do not repeat the mistakes जो हमने past में की हैं. There is a saying that, you know, if you keep doing the same thing and start expecting a different result every time, that doesn't make any sense. So we have to really set our priorities and then enhance our institutional strength, number 2, and then think about our own specific role in that effort. I think it has to be an inclusive, cohesive, and continued strategic approach that will get us out of the developmental quagmire that we are in right now as a country. और जिसके बहुत सारे हमारे बाकी स्पीकर्स ने, डॉक्टर डार ने बहुत एबली हाईलाइट किया कि हमारे एजुकेशन का कितना ज़्यादा एक डीप क्राइसिस है। इसी तरह जो हमारे पब्लिक हेल्थ स्पेशलिस्ट हैं उन्होंने जो हमारे हेल्थ क्राइसिस हैं, स्टंटिंग की बात की, पब्लिक हेल्थ क्राइसिस की बात की। सो आई थिंक अ कंसर्टेड अप्रोच and a consistent effort with continuity of policies, with the priorities that suit us as a nation, and that are not someone's agenda, or where the perception is that it is someone's agenda being imposed on us. A sort of conscious owning up of our problems and then thinking of going ahead, forging ahead our ways into future. That is what we need. I'll be very quick because I wanted to listen to everyone's views on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Samina. जी डॉक्टर बुखारी आप हमारे साथ हैं। डॉक्टर बुखारी के बीचों के मीटिंग शुरू
जी मैं बिल्कुल ब्रीफली, थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर गिविंग मी एन अपॉर्चुनिटी अगेन। देखिए वो कोविड में फिर से कहूँगा हैज टॉट अस अ लॉट। कोविड हैज प्रूव्ड एज अ कैटलिस्ट फॉर ऑप्टिंग अस टू द ऑनलाइन डिजिटल। जो पहले हम तैयारी कर रहे थे उसने हमें मजीद पुश कर दिया कि वी शुड अडॉप्ट। अभी भी हम उसके लिए मुकम्मल तैयार नहीं है, तो हमें अब इस प्रोसेस को बिल्कुल बिफोर एनी अदर पैंडेमिक स्ट्राइक, दिस इज गोना बी समथिंग व्हिच इज गोना हैपन। ये हो रहा है, पहले 100 साल बाद होता था, अभी हम देख रहे हैं कि 15-15, 20-20 साल में। तो दिस टाइम विल बेसिकली जो है वो शॉर्ट ही होगा। और एज वी आर गोइंग टू ब्रिंग मोर लैंड अंडर कल्टीवेशन, तो वी आर एक्सपोजिंग आवरसेल्व्स टू ऑल दोस काइंड ऑफ अ क्रिएशन व्हिच वी हैव नेवर सीन, एंड गॉड नोज व्हाट सॉर्ट ऑफ जर्म्स दे आर कैरिंग। तो ये हमें अपने एनवायरनमेंट से भी अवेयर होना है, अपनी प्रैक्टिसेस से भी अवेयर होना है। तो इसके लिए को क्रिएशन की तरफ जाना चाहिए, हमें नॉलेज हाउस की तरफ जाना चाहिए। हमें मिलकर ये जो 4-5 एजेंडास आप बना रहे हैं, there can be a very good coherence between all of them, and all those stakeholders should be working in silos में बजाय करने के इंटीग्रेशन में काम करें। you'll find a better solution to these problems. They are all integrated. I won't say कि ये एक दूसरे से, प्रॉब्लम ये है कि हमारे यहाँ गवर्नेंस के इतने इश्यूज हैं, nobody allows us to enter into other territories even to talk about that. ये बहुत एक प्रॉब्लम है। अगर क्लाइमेट चेंज को देखा जाए तो इसके इम्पैक्ट कई और एरियाज के अंदर आते हैं, एनवायरनमेंट के इम्पैक्ट कई और एरियाज के अंदर आते हैं। तो वी नीड टू गवर्नेंस के फ्रेमवर्क को भी अच्छा करना है, और हमें अपनी यूनिवर्सिटीज एजुकेशन को भी ओवरहॉलिंग की तरफ तवज्जो देनी होगी। तो इंशाल्लाह विद दीज वर्ड्स, और यूथ के ऊपर स्पेशल फोकस, मदर एंड चाइल्ड हेल्थ is a very important education and child health. ये दोनों पे अगर हम अर्ली एज में तवज्जो दें तो I believe a lot of challenges can be addressed properly. Thank you very much.
Right, sir. Thank you so much. मैं चाहूँगा कि हम डॉक्टर इकरार साहब से भी कोई फाइनल थॉट। सर 1 minute क्रिस्पी मैसेज सर, वे फॉरवर्ड।
मैं समझता हूँ कि फूड सिक्योरिटी, जीरो हंगर का कुछ चैलेंज है, ये अचीवेबल है, ये मुश्किल नहीं है। इसमें एक तो टेक्नोलॉजी जो अवेलेबल है उसको इस्तेमाल किया जाए, और R&D में इन्वेस्ट किया जाए, क्योंकि टेक्नोलॉजी ऑब्सलीट हो रही है बाय द डे, और हमारी रिसर्च पे इन्वेस्टमेंट जो है वो बहुत पुअर है, बल्कि नेग्लिजिबल है। उसके अलावा हम अपने इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में, पर्टिकुलरली वाटर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को रिविजिट करें। इस वक्त जो इरिगेशन सिस्टम है ये 1870-80 में डिज़ाइन हुआ था, उस वक्त के हिसाब से ये ठीक था। अब ये इरिगेशन सिस्टम टोटली सिक है, इसमें बहुत इन्वेस्टमेंट हुई भी है लास्ट 20 ईयर्स में। उसको वैल्यूएट किया जाए कि आफ्टर ऑल उसका इम्पैक्ट क्यों नहीं हो रहा, उसका इम्पैक्ट नहीं है। और फिर जो हमारे फ्यूचर इरिगेशन सिस्टम बन रहे हैं, पर्टिकुलरली कच्छी कनाल, थल कनाल और जलालपुर कनाल, ये 3 नए सिस्टम है जो अभी पूरी तरह से ऑपरेशनल नहीं है, कमांड एरियाज बनने हैं। इसको रीडिज़ाइन किया जाए, इसको 1870 और 80 वाले डिज़ाइन पे ना लगाया जाए। अगर ये 1870-80 वाले डिज़ाइन पे लगे तो ये मैंने जैसे कहा कि 4% पर एकड़ ऑलरेडी हैं, ये ऐड होंगे, पॉपुलेशन तो बढ़ेगी, और ये सिस्टम इसको फीड नहीं कर सके। सो there's a restructuring required, there's technology available to be used, and there's requirement for investment in technology. And I agree with the education of masses on the food habits and mother and child part also.
Sir, thank you very much. जी डॉक्टर फातिमा।
जी शुक्रिया शाहिद साहब। मेरे नज़दीक चार चीज़ें वे फॉरवर्ड हो सकती हैं। पहली बात तो ये है कि वी नीड टू मेक आवर स्टूडेंट्स ग्लोबली कॉम्पिटेंट। इस competitive दौर में where we are thinking of academic beyond borders, we need to develop those important global skills in our students that would make them viable citizens of our country as well as if they wish to move ahead. दूसरी बात ये है कि we need to work towards a curriculum that makes our students lifelong learners. Again, इसमें skills भी आ जाती हैं, इसमें vocational training भी आ जाती है, इसमें की आपकी social skills भी आ जाती हैं. So we need to move towards that. तीसरी चीज ये है कि we need to seriously come out of this educational template जिसमें हमने बच्चों को डाल दिया है. एक फ्रेमवर्क है, उसमें बच्चे जाते हैं, वी आर churning out graduates. तो हमें we need to move away from the concept of these templates and frameworks in which we put our students. और आखिरी चीज जो मैं कहना चाहूंगी वो ये है कि we need to harvest this exceptional phenomenon called technology, and we need to harness it for better and meaningful use. Only then I think that we can talk about moving ahead in the educational scenario. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. At the end, I would say that let me turn to our audience first, because they are so much dedicated and raised number of questions. Let me thanks to my all the panelists. Before that, I'll say that Dr. Abid Suleri was supposed to join, but as he was called by the Prime Minister because he's on the National Economic Council of the Prime Minister, and he was there, so he couldn't join. Dr. Shahzad Ali Khan had to leave because there was another meeting and he had to rush. Dr. Sajida Noureen, the Vice Chancellor from Sardar Bahadur Khan Women University, Quetta, she joined, but unfortunately there was a disconnect, and then she came. I received her message that because she had another meeting, so she couldn't be able, and maybe next time she will be sharing her thoughts from the Balochistan. So with this, let me thanks to all the panelists, Dr. Samina, Taslim, Zehra. Madam, thank you so much for being with us. We learned a great deal from you, and the suggestion, the input which has been given by you, certainly it is a way forward, and we will be focusing on those while we'll be writing the policy reforms. And thank you so much, Dr. Shahzad Ali Khan Saab, for your valuable inputs on health systems. Thank you, Dr. Iqrar A Khan Saab. So you're so generous. Every time you come up with concrete ideas and solutions for the agriculture reforms. Thank you so much. We know that the time really short for having such kind of debate, but anyway, thank you so much for your passion and dedication. Thank you, Dr. Habib Bokhari Saab. So nice of you that you've been here. We know that you have another meeting, but thank you so much for remaining with us all the time and highlighting key issues and concern for malnutrition, mother and child health, and health, and of course, academia. Dr. Fatima Rehan Dar, thank you so much. Every time you come up with very innovative ideas in education and education reforms, and you come up with 4 key solutions for the academic growth. Certainly we'll be working and focusing on these areas. So with this, thank you all the panelists. Last but not the least, thank you my own team, SDPI team, those who've been there for all these arrangements. Very special thanks to Ms. Aisha Ilyas for all this moderation, facilitation, and putting question. Thank you to the IT team, and thank you everybody. Stay blessed. We'll keep in touch, maybe having some more session in future. So with this, let me thank you all. So God bless you, and take care of your
Allah
bye.
Hafiz.
Thank you very much, and hope to see more of you later on in future. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz. Allah Hafiz.